What about this one? Indoors or outdoors? Which one? How do you know? Corridor. You're not lifting from the passage now. You're interpreting, you're guessing. Reading is a guessing game. It's not matching. Did the writer try to get near the patient? How do you know? I did not follow. All right. Now the important thing is, what's making this different from the previous one is, here we're asking, how do you know? And the words are different. So there is interpretation, there's guessing. It's not all stated there. Thank you. And number 4. His name, yeah. Or subtitle, yeah. Okay. What might the job of the writer be? Doctor, nurse? Is there a right answer? Should it be the doctor only? The nurse only? Alright? It's open for interpretation and all answers should be accepted because they all make sense. But if you say this is a teacher, not a likely answer. It's not necessarily wrong, but it's not the most likely answer. Alright, so, and finally, this one. Why do you think she wanted to talk to the patient? To soothe him, to talk to him about his worries, to give instructions, to fix a new appointment. Which of these answers is the correct one? All of them are correct and all should be accepted. So we're not here for an answer key, we are for answers that make sense, that make the students think and interpret and go beyond what's written and relate it to everyday life. How do the students manage to answer this? By relying on the knowledge of the context, the knowledge of real life, their schemata, which we're going to come to. All right. Here's another one. For the sake of time, here's what we depend on here to say that this is probably a nurse or a doctor and that's probably a patient upset maybe because he's ill, because of the disease that surprised him. We rely here on our background knowledge. The so-called schemata. Top-down schemata are based on the assumptions, the general knowledge that we know, which helps us interpret the details that we find in the text. So we have those ideas, those assumptions, and we come to interpret the details in the light of this background knowledge, top-down. Excuse me? Yes, thank you very much. As opposed to, or as complementary to, bottom-up processes, bottom-up schemata. And here we're talking about the details that are there in the passage that can help us understand the big picture. So that's bottom-up. Now in reading, which one should we use? Should we go from the background to the details, or from the details to the background, or both ways? Both ways. They both interact, and that makes for successful reading. We use the background knowledge and the assumptions and the knowledge of everyday life in order to interpret what we have and give it extra dimension. And when we understand the details, those help us understand the big picture. So they both interact. Let's look at what happens when one of these is in trouble and what we should do to establish these two. The process is very simple. What do you think? What process are we talking about? Arranging something. Laundry? Possible. Do you think it's laundry? Alright, if rewrite it or to explain it, would you be able to? Is it easy or difficult? Do you understand what it's all about? It's not easy because we don't have this background knowledge. We don't have a context where this belongs. Then it's very difficult. What if I tell you this is the photocopier? You said the laundry. I have another interpretation. The photocopier. Let's look at this. Does it make sense now? First you collect the items that you have to photocopy from different places, sort them into piles, handle one pile at a time. Once done with one pile, you take the items out and sort them out again, who they go to, memoranda, and take each group to its place. Or the laundry. Let's take the laundry example. Collecting the items. What items are we talking about here? Clothes. Sort them into piles of white, some colored. Once done with one pile, you take them out, sort them out again, then take each group to its place. Does it make more sense now? Okay, what does this mean? That when top-down schemata, when the general assumptions, the background and the context are missing, we have a problem. We don't quite understand. Which means that to make something like this easier, we need to explain or to provide the students with a context and familiarize them with it before they start reading. Hence the need for pre-reading, to establish the context, to familiarize them with a picture, with a title, with keywords. So if I ask you now, what is this process? Laundry. What items does it refer to? And so on and so forth. Now that you have a context in mind, you can interpret it easier. But beforehand, it must have been very difficult. In this way you guess. And that's what we need to teach our students, to show them how to guess, rather than provide them with words they already know all the time scaffolding them, all the time supporting them, spoon-feeding them. Let them guess, because this is something they need in everyday life. If you train them on more words, Harry is a thief, he would the gold from his grandmother's teeth. He would. What kind of word do we need? A verb. And is it something good, or what do you know about this verb, about this action? Bad, because not guilty. What kinds of words? Something bad about the goal. Alright, do you see the thinking process? This is what we should be teaching our students, rather than lists of words that they learn in context. How to guess rather than, here is the syllabus, here is the content. It's the skill versus the content. And so on and so forth. There will be more of these. There's a workshop based on this session, and it's coming right after the plenary. So these will be done in detail because it's a workshop. Now it's the concepts. Now another thing is understanding reference. That's another skill that we need to train our students on. To look at the pronouns and decide what they refer to. Let's look at the second one. If she wants to, Nora can be a charming support to her mother. If she wants to. Who does she refer to? Linguistically, yes, but in this context, if she wants to, Nora can be a charming support to her mother. Who does it refer to? The mother? I'm surprised. I intended it to be Nora, but there are two possibilities. Maybe we need a longer context in order to make more sense of this. All right, what about it in the previous example? The airplane. Okay. Right, so pronouns and what they refer to, and that's another thing. Possible words words they could refer to, and then which one exactly, depending on the context, that would make it clearer. So, do we teach them vocabulary? Do we skip vocabulary? Do we teach them the words, or how to guess the words? From word parts, from parts of speech, from the context? And how do we teach them? All right. Now, one of the problems with learners, poor learners reading in English is, or in any foreign language, is slow reading. They think they have to read every single word as if they are deciphering it. We need to overcome that through some sub-skills, through training them on expeditious, fast reading sub-skills, giving them a deadline, a very fast deadline, like a minute. And in 1 minute, I want you to come up with something. Here, we teach them skimming, how to do it, and on what basis. On what basis do we skim? Do we get the main idea? On what basis? What do we go back to? Which word? Now this is the point. Now we expect them, we think that by telling them skim and get the main idea, that they will know how to get the main idea. Our role is to show them where to find the main idea. Where do we, expert readers, find the main idea? In the title, in the picture, in the topic sentences, words that are repeated. So which word is repeated? Which word has synonyms? So we can find it quite quickly. But it's the how rather than do this and we think they know. So they need guidance on how to do it. Hence the title of the presentation, which is before testing reading, teach me how to read. It's the how rather than go ahead and do this. Scanning. With scanning, what are we asking them to do? We're asking them here for particular details. If we're asking them for something like, when was someone born? What are we looking for? Looking for a date. But the date by itself is not enough. Because it could be the date when he went to school. So we need to read around that in order to confirm or disconfirm whether this date is what is meant. So what we need here is not only to tell them about what to look for, but also how to read around it and how to look at that. In contrast to expeditious reading, we have careful reading. And this, they need to do many things with. They need to look for pronoun references, discourse markers. They need to interpret topic sentences, organization of text, general statements versus examples, explicit ideas, implied ideas, the intention, the attitude, and where to find them, and what kinds of words would indicate those. What kinds of words would indicate attitude? Adjectives, verbs like claim, instead of someone said, someone claimed. So claim would be a word that shows doubt. So we need to show them what it is that they should focus on in order to find out the difference and the clues that they should rely on. Who's the addressee, the audience? All of these need to be taught how rather than just do this and that's it. You're all familiar with Bloom's taxonomy. He came up with lower order thinking skills, knowledge, and knowledge, things like knowing, repeating an idea, remembering an idea, comprehension, arranging, reporting, application, illustrating and transforming, and higher further learning skills, analyzing, synthesizing, assembling together selectively, and finally evaluating, critically, criticizing, appraising something. Now, how do we help our students learn these and practice these? They need guidance. The assumption is they read well in their first language, so they would do that automatically in the foreign language. Far from the truth. Do they know how to read well in their first language? Do they read between the lines? Do they read the implications? So, and is this automatically transferred to English? That's not necessarily true. Now, let's spend a few minutes on the different skills, the different activities that we can do according to each of these thinking levels. One of these is comprehension. And by comprehension, I skipped knowledge, which is identifying the idea, identifying it as it is, because that's mere copy or repeating. But when we come to comprehension, the second level, this could imply summarizing or arranging. We need to do a number of things to practice this. Things like asking the students to summarize a story or a news item for the class magazine. Group writing and answering questions. So one group writes questions, another writes the answers. Cutting a story into strips and asking them to arrange them and put them in order according to dates, according to logic, according to which part comes after the other. And retell the different parts. The next step up is application. And by application, we mean that they take the ideas of one thing and apply them to another. They transform the ideas from prose to dialogue, from prose to a picture. So they read something and they draw a picture accordingly. It doesn't have to be a beautiful picture as long as it shows the shape of the house, for example. Applying to a different country. This is what happened in Canada. How can this project apply in Egypt? This is what a university teacher does. What does a school teacher do accordingly, and you apply it? What would you do if you were the main character? Take the dialogue, the narration, and rewrite it as dialogue. Read about the job specifications and write an advertisement for that job. Take this story and compare it to your own life. Our students are fond of saying زي عندنا بالضبط, just like in our situation. So why not take that and ask them to apply what they read about to their own context, to their own neighborhood, to their own family. It doesn't necessarily show that it shows not only that they comprehend, but they can do something more than just comprehending. So we're building on that. So application necessarily implies comprehension plus application. We go a step further and we ask them for analysis, which assumes that they know, they comprehend, they can apply, and now they can analyze. By analyzing, they can outline the passage or the reading, they can analyze it, or compare and contrast to something else. One possibility is to outline the main events of a story into different stages. Draw a timeline and show the different events on the timeline. Analyze the character into the childhood qualities or inherited qualities and acquired qualities, or positive qualities and negative qualities, or any kind of classification. Identify the best route. You read about a number of routes and you identify which one is the best because you're comparing. Comparing the characters. What do they have in common? How are they different? A step further is to synthesize. And to synthesize is to combine together, to assemble together, to take bits and pieces from different texts and put them together in a way that shows comprehension of each and shows being able to select the relevant parts and put them together. A quite more advanced skill than what we talked about before, that already assumes they can know, they comprehend, they apply, they analyze, and now they synthesize. So the higher up the scale you go, the more you assume they can do the rest. Examples of this are to solve a mystery in a detective story. So they have to get to understand all the clues, put them together, and then find out who done it, the kind of story. Predict the ending based on the facts. So you give them the beginning of a story, and based on all the evidence, based on all the events, then how can they anticipate what's going to happen? Write an alternative ending to what they have that would make sense or that would make more sense. Change an event in the story and predict what's going to happen. Take two articles and compare them and see which one makes more sense. If the students are able to do that with synthesizing, then they go a step further and they go to evaluation, critiquing, judging, assessing. And here they assess the pros and cons. They distinguish fact from fiction, fact from opinion. They evaluate the information and see whether it makes sense, whether it's logical. Select the best character, and on what basis, because they are comparing and judging the characters, giving their own opinion based on what they are reading. And suggesting a resolution for the problem, which means they understand the problem, they understand the different risks that the person is running, and based on that they can find out a resolution. And finally, assess the tone, assess the point of view and the opinion of the writer. In this way, we lead them to critical reading and critical thinking, moving away from rash conclusions to intellectual guesses and intellectual reasoning. We encourage them not to be reluctant to question authority and to question tradition, but to accept and assume responsibility for what they are doing. Much needed skills in the Egypt of 2015 and in the years to follow. So in this way, we help them not only read by just copying what's there, but we help them, guide them and mentor them into making sense of what they are reading, making sense at the level of the surface meaning and at the level of how to go a step further when they are ready and keep going up until they read critically. So, as our role is not to impose one right answer,